Hi there, guys. So I wanted to pick up on a story today that Reform UK's council leader in Kent has written to Yvette Cooper to request a loosening of rules on immigration for care work. And no, I certainly didn't have this on my bingo card in 2025 either. But let's have a look then. So in the article on the BBC, it says Reform UK-led council, Kent, has called on the government to reconsider its plans to end health and social care visas for overseas workers. KCC leader Lyndon Kemcaran has written to Home Secretary Yvette Cooper to raise grave concerns about the proposals in the new immigration bill. And Kemcaran said the decision could leave care providers on a cliff edge. So a government spokesperson said its decision to close the route to overseas recruitment stemmed from the abuse and exploitation of workers. And then the rules regarding the social care worker visa route to overseas recruitment are to change on the 22nd of July. And there's going to be a requirement for firms to hire British nationals or extend the visas of overseas workers who are already here. So in the letter, Kemcaran and another member of the cabinet at KCC, they said the authority and the care providers had not received formal notification of the changes. Quote, across the contracts for the council's adult social care and health services, there are approximately 150 providers we are aware of who have sponsorship licences, which is equal to about 20 to 25% of our social care workforce being from overseas. That's a huge number. Paired with the changes announced in the autumn budget that resulted in changes to NI contributions from April 2025, this is totally unsustainable, and the risk is that many care workers at this level will go home and leave providers on a cliff edge. So I'm just going to give a bit of a brief explainer about the way adult social care works in the UK. So in the UK, adult social care is administered by local authorities or councils. Now, in practice, that means that they will assess a person's needs and then they will make provision for that person's care. And that could be perhaps via support in the community or in a nursing home or a care home. But of course, there's a huge financial component to that. So essentially, the rules are that local councils will fund someone's adult social care bill if their personal savings are below £23,000. So if someone has savings above that amount, then there is an expectation that the person will pay for their own care and support. However, with people living longer, with people having more complex health issues, and with the increased cost of care in older age, it's highly likely that at some stage, someone's going to dip below that 23,000 threshold, and then councils are going to need to fund that person's adult social care bill. And for context, in England, about 40% of total council expenditure is on adult social care. So this is a huge portion of their overall expenditure. Clearly, changes to migration policy or to local government funding by central government, it has a huge impact on their bottom line. And that's one of the main reasons why local authorities have been so cash-strapped over recent years. So what I would envisage has happened in this case is that the nursing and care home providers have approached Lyndon Kemcaran here, the council leader, and explained to her that if these changes to the immigration rules go ahead and large numbers of their workforce suddenly return home, they're not going to be able to fulfil their duties to the residents of Kent, and that it won't be financially viable for them to do so. So from the council's perspective, people are still going to need to have their care needs met, and the buck ultimately stops with the council. So what they're going to have to do is essentially increase the funding to care homes to employ more expensive staff, and thereby massively increasing their costs. And then in terms of the politics of it, adult social care in this country has always been a ticking time bomb. So I almost have some sympathy for this woman, but I don't, because she and her party have absolutely poisoned the discourse in this country, and I hate them, frankly. But in terms of reform, ultimately this is just a story about reality colliding with fiction. All their empty rhetoric about Doge, all the noise and the pointless promises are proven with this one story to be just that. The truth is that there is no money in local authorities. There's nothing to cut. All the low-hanging fruit was cut ages ago by the Tories. And the reality for this woman is that now she's in a position of authority, she has to deal with the world as it is, not as she wants it to be. Reform, obviously, they've got some fantasy right-wing vision of Britain in the 1950s that never actually existed. So I can only imagine the cognitive dissonance that Lyndon Kemcaran is experiencing at this moment. Essentially, her whole worldview is just folding in on itself. But interestingly, I've hardly seen this reported anywhere, and I suppose that's just because it doesn't fit the narrative that Reform are these electoral geniuses who are going to sweep to power, on a tidal wave of goodwill and public support. they're going to cut all this waste, and they're going to cut net zero, they're going to implement their Doge policies, all of which is a total fantasy and total bollocks, by the way. But anyway, I just thought this was an interesting story as a sign of things to come, really, should reform make up our next government. But yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you next time.